She's outspoken. She's not afraid to ask tough questions. She's not afraid to speak her mind. You've read her column. Maybe you're a fan on Facebook. No topic is off limits. Straight to the point. There's no chaser. You're now watching Straight Talk with Carla Zuill.
And we're back with Straight Talk. With us in studio, we have Mr. Io Johnson, founder of new media organization Think Media. Now, Mr. Johnson, before the break, we were talking about what you plan on doing, giving Bermudians unbiased, independent journalism. Now, there can be consequences for hard-hitting journalism. In some cases, people have had allegedly, maybe mortgages pulled or creditors calling up their backs all of a sudden for anything that they do when it comes to standing up. Are you not afraid of potential repercussion?
Not really, but let me correct what you said in your question. I'm not unbiased at all. My bias is actually a healthy skepticism towards people with power. Okay, people and entities with inordinate power over other people's lives, basically. That's a bias, no question. I'm not afraid of what the reaction might be because I am a free man, failure is not to try. Okay, and my experience at the Gazette, was actually a liberation in a way, because I decided 3 years ago, approximately, that no matter where I was, no matter who was paying the bills, that I wasn't going to have my tongues tied by what I call the golden handcuffs. Okay, so my responsibility as a journalist in a racist institution was to actually put the racism on the table and say, we need to deal with this stuff. Okay, so the degree to which they listened to me was pretty much zero, but at least I spoke my truth.
No.
And so I'm actually proud of being spat out by a racist institution. Okay, so had I been afraid of the consequences, okay, then I would not be bringing Think Media to the world today. You see what I'm saying? So it all sort of works out,
But already you've had some resistance. Recently you were at a press conference and initially they didn't recognize you as a journalist. Were you insulted by that?
No, I found it, on a personal level, I didn't really, it was a bit scary, I should say, in a way. It was more fear of the meaning of this action, okay? Because here you have probably one of the most well-known and most experienced journalists, working journalists, being prevented from entry by the Premier's personal staff. This is important. The Premier's personal staff. His driver was upstairs blocking the door. Okay? And the driver, who should be in a car downstairs, okay? And he wore a uniform, he wore a regiment uniform. Okay, so this was a military, basically. The imagery of that, like when I realized that was what was happening, actually scared me, because I have lived in a one-party state. I've lived in an authoritarian regime. I've lived on a military dictatorship. Okay, so, and this was years ago, and here I am on this island.
In 2014.
In 2014, for a couple of decades, thinking I'm quite safe now, and, what I mean? So there was a level at which, personally, it was actually quite scary. But I was also afraid for the slippery slope nature of that interaction. Okay, because the quality of our democracy in Sierra Leone, when back in the 1960s or 70s, was such that you could take the Prime Minister to court for not paying his taxes. A citizen could do that. Okay, and when the authoritarians started slipping in and nobody spoke up, okay, it was a slippery slope to the point where, and the history, the recent history of Sierra Leone, where we started killing each other for no good reason. Okay, so on that level, I was afraid for the country.
How did you feel that?
I wasn't insulted, though.
How did you feel that your fellow journalists stood up for you?
That's what gave me hope. When I learned that afterwards, because I didn't know when I was outside, arguing with the government. I had no idea that that's what was going on inside, you know. But again, it wasn't everybody, you know. The BBC, I know, was leading the protest, and Bermuda Sun and Burn News, you know, both VSB and the Royal Gazette. Now these are the legacy institutions that we need to that refuse to participate. Okay, they refuse to stand up for their colleagues. Okay, and it's not about black or white. This is about journalism. You know, probably the most important profession in Bermuda today.
Yeah. Do you think that journalism gets the respect that it deserves? Because people think, oh, it's just writing.
I think people's skepticism and maybe disdain for the profession is partly deserved, to be honest. You know, let's go back to this incident, for example. You know, the Gazette pretended it never happened. It never hit their pages, you know. And I'm like, how could you not? I mean, you don't have to like me. It's not about me. It's not about Io Johnson. It's about a threat to freedom of expression. You know, it's a threat to the media, of which you're a part of. And it didn't happen. You know, if you don't write about it in the Gazette, it didn't happen.
But were you surprised that it wasn't covered?
I was actually. I was surprised. You know, I mean, it was it was a lead news and everywhere else. It was, you know, you can't. So, but that leads me to why. I mean, why shouldn't people have a disdain for journalism? You know, when that sort of thing happens. You know, when things that are integral to their lives. You know, people still stop me in the street today and said, "Well done for standing up. You know, we support you." You know, so it hits a chord. You know. But not with the Gazette. Right. So you know. Now,
for Think Media, you're going to be launching quite shortly.
We should be live just about now, actually. The website is think.bm, and I am. We have a first digital journal called Politica. If your viewers go to think.bm, there's a link to Politica, or you can go straight to politica.think.bm, and we're on.
Are you planning on shaking things up in Bermuda?
My plan on shaking things up? I'm planning on providing independent journalism wherever it's needed. Okay. The current edition of Think Media is all about stuff that's happening in Bermuda. We have a feature-length article on how the government has handled Nathan Landau's interest in the gaming, in the casino business here. And as you know, it's been very controversial. And I just felt that we needed some clarity on that, you know, because there's a lot of political rhetoric flying here, and, you know, a lot of allegations.
And the Premier won't talk about it?
No, he won't, actually. In this story, he just refused to answer questions, you know. But I've been pursuing this since probably June or July last year. Okay, so every chance I get, you know, I'll ask a question, you know, and I'll note it down, you know. So I've been sort of investigating by stealth, if you like, you know. But I think things really hit a head in Parliament on February the 14th. And if people don't remember all that, you can go online, you can read the whole thing. There's a lot of background there. And by then, events were sort of unfolding in a very rapid way, because I got the Premier to admit that Stephen da Costa was actually on the private jet.
That's right.
Because we had no evidence, you know, up until that point. And I had spent many months trying to find documentary evidence that he was there. Okay, but it didn't stop with the fact that he was on the plane. Okay, what I was trying to establish was whether or not he was actually in the meetings. Okay, because that would have been a basic a warning flag to something is wrong here. Okay, because of course he could have easily say, as he did. In fact, I suggested to him, I said, was he just bumming a ride? You know, and that's why the Premier said, yes, he was actually. He was just bumming a ride. But everybody knows something is not quite right. Okay, the population doesn't know quite what is wrong. So I thought, let me pursue this and see whether we could bring some clarity. I'm not going to say much more because I need you all to get online and subscribe, pay whatever, $2 or whatever it is on the website, so you can see the whole. It's 4,200 words, So make sure you have good time, get some coffee or tea or whatever it is,
One last question before we close out. Are you ready to be a revolutionary?
Am I ready to be a revolutionary? I don't call myself a revolutionary, but and the reason why is that if everybody lived according to their own conscience and follow their passions and refused to have their tongues tied by a job or a mortgage or whatever, okay, then nobody has to be a revolutionary per se. If everybody was a leader, then the cost of leadership, okay, is less across the board. Okay, this is what I used to tell my people, my colleagues at the Royal Gazette. They can't fire us all. So why don't we all just speak up and tell truth, speak truth to power, And I understand it's kind of hard to do. I am ready to be the only one for a while, but I'm also ready to empower other people to do the same thing. Okay, so I will tell any young person coming up, I will help train journalists in this country, and I will tell them how to go about things, because what will save this country is a plurality of media outlets. So we end the era of the Royal Gazette. Okay, and by that I don't mean burn the place down, okay, or run them out of business. Okay, what I mean is we end the era where you have a dominant narrative that has infected our psyche for almost 200 years and continues to do so, okay, by having more diverse options for people to choose from. Okay, that ends it because it weakens their domination. Okay, and people begin to realize, that because what's important is that journalism is the first draft of history. Okay, and when you went to school, you learned a certain type of history, didn't you? It didn't really include you, did it?
Right.
You learn about Black community history from
America.
Yeah, exactly. But the Bermudian side you learned in private settings. Okay, so why exclude that history from the public setting? Okay, because the dominant narrative is controlled by certain people, And so let's end that era now. We've got the technology to do it. So let's just do it. It's simple, really. First of all, you cannot be a political journalist and then have a contract, a communication contract
With one party.
With a political party. Okay, that was the most defamatory thing about his statement.
More Straight Talk after these messages.